So what kind of resources might be useful in this engagement? I think there are at least three, or maybe more. The first one, of course, is knowledge of the field itself, you know, what the transhumanists are saying. One of the areas I've become interested in is not just transhumanism, but also some of the what I call cousins of transhumanism, like the de-extinction projects that are around. Because what's interesting about that is that what we think we might be able to do with other animals, in this case resurrecting the woolly mammoth, for example, gives us some window or indication of what the kinds of things that might be possible in humans. And you saw this very clearly with genetics. Transgenic animals are quite common now, but it gives the tools that would be similar to what could be used on humans. So you sort of see there aren't so many ethical constraints when working with other animals, and certainly if you're trying to de-extinct a woolly mammoth, there's no real scientific community that says you cannot do that. So there's no one to say, you know, you cannot do it. So in a sense, the science has no restraints whatsoever. But I think it's really interesting seeing what is driving those particular desires, and it's more complicated than the straight transhumanist desire, which is to extend our own human life. This is about trying to bring life back and trying to restore what has been broken by the devastation of species, which is happening at an ever accelerating rate. So on the surface of things, it might look quite a good thing to do, and so it has a sort of an immediate appeal in terms of the public good. But you have to kind of, again, analyse what are the motivations, what are the desires, what's going on in the way this is talked about, which we need to analyse and critique. So that's one area. The other is philosophy. So I think we need to be attuned to the philosophical presuppositions of what transhumanism is all about and some of the claims that's being made. It might be that there are philosophers like Paul Ricoeur that could be useful in thinking about what it means to be human, or our sense of finitude, or even his understanding of good and evil and so on, which I've become interested in. Other more general philosophers like Mary Midgley remind us of the dangers of scientism, and so I think we need to distinguish between scientific projects and scientistic ones. And I think that if you talk to evolutionary biologists who are now working in the field of evolutionary biology, they will say that much of what transhumanists are putting forward are not really scientifically possible in any even imaginable world. So there's a scientism in there that needs to be resisted, and the claims about what it is to be human in terms of algorithms is also very distorted. We're far more than algorithms. We are very complex beings that have very complex feedback processes with ourselves and our environment, our genetics. It's not enough just to say we can remake ourselves according to algorithms, because they don't really tell us much about what it means to be human. They tell us about what we can do with computers, so it's a different kind of scenario. And then, of course, the theological and the traditional aspects are also important, because they tell us much more about how we might understand our virtues and our vices and our inner desires, and what it is that really drives us to become moral beings. And for that, I find the work of Thomas Aquinas particularly helpful. His work on the different virtues and the different vices has been really informative for some of the work that I've been doing. And I think he also riffs off Augustine again, who came up with the idea of curiositas. So I think it's very useful to draw on those traditional resources.